Very good, very good evening, everyone. Respected members and other dignitaries present here. It gives me great pleasure to welcome all of you to today's webinar. All India Federation of Tax Practitioners is celebrating its 40th Foundation Day across the nation. In the eve of the celebration, the Kerala chapter of All India Federation of Tax Practitioners, along with Palakkad Study Circle, is conducting today's webinar. So I would like to take this opportunity to warm welcome to our vibrant chairman of SALSOL, Advocate M. Ganeshan, to the webinar. And it is great pleasure to welcome the chief guest of today's webinar, Sri C.A. Vimal Jain sir, stalwart in Indian taxation field. I welcome our prolific and vibrant speaker of today's seminar, C.A. Ajit Sridhar sir, and also Advocate Bhaskar sir, NEC member from Chennai, Secretary of AFTP SALSOL, Advocate Fasluddin sir, Kerala State Coordinator, Advocate Anil VM, Advocate Harian sir, and Advocate Kiran Ramachandran, Mrs. Sujeta Ramachandran, TPR M. Vijayan, District Coordinator, Palakkad Study Circle. And welcome once again all members and participants here. Thank you.
Thank you, Jafar. Next, I would
our chief guest is joining.
Chairman of AFTP SALSOL for an official inauguration of today's program.
Anilji, our chief guest is joining.
Okay.
Within a minute he will join. Can we start thereafter?
Okay, we will do. Okay, he is joined. Welcome, Vimal sir. Good evening. Vimal sir.
Good evening, sir.
Yeah.
Yes.
Good evening, Ji. Vimal Jain. Welcome.
Good evening, Ji. Good evening. Good evening. Good evening.
Welcome, sir. Let's start. So I invite our chairman for today's program.
Very good evening to all. It is very glad pleasure to see you all here. Most respected today's chief guest, our dearest Sri Vimal Jain sir, today's eminent speaker and beloved our friend C.A. Ajit Sridhar sir, our sole secretary Advocate Fasluddin sir and Advocate Bhaskar sir, and all other eminent leaders, especially from Mumbai. Tana sir is also logged here. So I welcome Tana sir also, and all my colleagues and dear members. Today is a very special day to us. Today we are virtually celebrating 45th Foundation Day of All India Federation of Tax Practitioners. Our federation is rendering great service to our nation and our fraternity for the last 45 years, long 45 years. I am not going to the history of the AFTP since I don't have much time for an elaborate speech. My pronouns to all great leaders, legendaries, those who are in the helm of the affairs and leaders. My pronouns to all active leaders and members, those who are worked and still working behind the screen of the screen for the development of the AFTP. Today's chief guest is very special person to us. C.A. Vimal Jain is a very learned person, well-known personality, charming personality, eminent and enthusiastic speaker. He is a permanent and regular speaker in our AFTP dais. Most welcomed and blessed speaker. Normally when a speaker speaks, we hear the voice through our ears only. But if the speaker is Vimal Jain, our heart to directly hear the voice since he is speaking from the bottom of the heart. Today we are lucky to have him as a chief guest of this program. I thank Mr. Bimal Jain for his kind acceptance. Thank you, Bimal Jain. Today's speaker, CA Ajit Sivadas, is also well speaking, simply and friendly. Yearly, in one occasion, we had him with us. He is a wonderful speaker. I am also thank Mr. Ajit Sivadasan, CSR, to accepting our request. In the recent couple of years, the states of southern India, especially Tamil Nadu and Kerala, got inspired and enthusiastically they are started to work for the progress of the AFTP. I wish all the best. Let me to thank all members and leaders of the AFTP to allow me to serve AFTP for the last 2 years. I assure I will be there. I will be with you forever. My service will continue. And I thank our moderator told that for the last 2 days we are celebrating. Our study circles are very well arranged meetings and everything. We are very, very happy. I thank all study circles in charges for conducting such a wonderful programs. Let me, as I said earlier, today is a special day for us. In this occasion, I am very happy to announce 2021 Zone Chairman's Award here with your permission. The award winners of the 2021 are the best coordinator, Sri R. Ravichandran from Tanjavur. Program was a cultural night national tax conference. Best program virtual NTC award goes to Advocate Sri G. Bhaskar Ji, Chennai. Best state coordinator award Sri V. N. Anil from Kerala. Best event organizer S. Nanjuna Prasad, NTC Cultural Night. Best study circle Palakkad coordinator Sri M. Vijayan. Best member silent worker Rabindra Desai. He was such a wonderful personality. He is very, very helpful to the administration and members. Membership development for the achieving. Now we are achieved the second place in among the zones. So that goes to the credit to the all who are worked beyond behind the screen. The award winners for the membership development are Ravichandran, again Ravichandran Tanjavur, Shaiju from Kannur, A. Murthy from Tirupur, A. Kanagaraj from Erode, Tunil Agamad from Tirupati, and Srimati Sujata Ramachandran from Tiruchur. And also, who was my backbone of the, also the zone's backbone, the best zone officer award goes to Sri M. Fasaluddin Sir, Secretary, South Zone. Best National Tax Coordinators Amrendra Manne and Shaligar BG. And also we have conducted spiritual and yoga programs led by K. S. Harigaran Sir and Nagesh Shangi, they backs awards. Upcoming faculties awards Jafar Ali Sulaiman and Kiran Ramachandran, Joshi K. George, Anish P. Shanoy. They have conducted wonderful trainings to our graduates, upcoming graduates and college students. Best faculty from South Zone, C.A. Unnikrishnan Sir, Trivandrum. Best supporter, COVID fund supporter, C.A. Sivadasan Sechur Sir from Palakkad. Special mention award goes to Sundar Ji from Trichy. Our sincere gratitude to M.S. Rao, Satyanarayana Ji and Dr. M.U.K. Murthy and all other officials, South Zone officials and also the national level officials and members. Thank you for the support given to me I express immense glad and congratulations to all award winners and sincere thanks to all members for the support given to the team 2021. Once again, I thank you all for allowing me to serve the fraternity and federation for the last 2 years as a vice chairman and chairman of the South Zone. I wish a good seminar and happy Foundation Day. With all your permission, I am herewith gladly announce the virtual Foundation Day celebration hereby inaugurated. Thank you for all.
Thank you, Ganesh sir, for especially for giving a lot of awards for those who are working sincerely in this zone. Congratulate all winners of this zone. Next, today's chief guest is our eminent national speaker, Sri C. Bimal Jain sir. For introducing our chief guest, I invite our advocate Fasluddin sir, our secretary, South Zone.
Thank you, Anil ji, and also our chairman. Thanks. South Zone. Good evening to everybody. Our chairman Sri Ganeshan ji, our chief guest Sri Bimal Jain ji. Bimal Jain ji साहब को नमस्कार from मेरा तरफ से और हमारा zone का तरफ से. Then CA Ajit Shivadas sir, faculty, and our office bearers, all members, Adhikar Bhaskar ji, ladies and gentlemen. These days are very important for us, the All India Federation of Tax Practice members, because our 45th Foundation Day celebrations were going on, especially Pune and also all over India. Including in our Kerala chapter ceremonies. Dear friends, here I am before you to remain the chief guest of the program, Sri Bimal Jain ji. In all meetings, I used to admire our guests of all our meetings as the zone secretary. But today, I am getting confused because our chief guest is so familiar, well known to everybody in our fraternity. So I am just opting to present his qualifications, experience, especially that he is very well known in our field. So I'm like that. Bimal ji sir, his qualifications are FCA, FCS, LLB, with 21 years of experience in direct taxes, GST, service tax, everything, VAT, CST, and also chairman of Indirect Tax Committee of PhD, Chamber of Commerce, author of many books, and especially Goods and Service Tax titled GST Law and Commentary with Analysis and Procedures, that 63rd November 2020. This book is well familiar in our field. A professional exercise image is, everybody knows he is a chartered accountant, number of things, member of Institute of Company Secretary also, and a lawyer also. He has working experience more than 18 years. And significant transactions, he has hands of many providing pertinent to advisory services, carrying out language service like that. It's a long list. Professional membership he got, chairman of Indirect Tax Committee of PhD member, chairman of Corporate Advisory Committee of IPEM Group of Institutions, member of Indirect Tax Committee of ASSOCHAM and ICCI, special committee of Indirect Tax Committee of ICI and ICSI, member of eminent faculties of Indirect Tax Committee of ICI and ICCI, ICMA. He got awards and recognitions such as the keynote speaker of Guinness World Record made by ICSI in largest taxation lesson on GST, attended by 4,500 participants, breaking a record. It's a very, very record of Japan. It's a very important recognition. And a business leader award from Amity School, Noida, best speaker award from NIRC, Young Achievers Award at Getting Minds 2015, best defense award of MSOP, 117th batch of ICSA. There is a long list. Due to the limitation of time, I am shortening the list and welcome our chief guest, Sri Bimal Jain ji, and all the present respected members once more. Jai Founders Day celebrations, especially to our special speech guest, Bimal Jain sir. Okay, sir.
Good evening to all my friends from Goddess Place. Today, you all are enjoying the Foundation Day, AIFTP South Zone. It's my privilege, proud privilege. I'm interacting with each one of you through virtual mode. And we all are knowing each other for GST. The common cause is GST, which is the biggest indirect tax reform since independence. We all know that GST, when got introduced in the country, we thought there would be one nation, one tax, one market, and we will have simplification, and there will not be cascading of taxes. Seamless flow of credit would be there in GST. As you all are enjoying Foundation Day, I do not want to deliberate on technical topic, but on this Foundation Day, I want to say some of the important silver lining things, which is important for all the members together, including me. See, whenever we, as a professional, interacting with each other, we always try to ensure that we provide quality of our services with the good content, excellency, and capability. That's what normally we do. And that is what the objective all about. And on this Foundation Day, I know that you're all distinguished managing committee members has taken a lot of pain, lot of initiative, and they are bringing more and more members together for the growth and success of our own fraternity. Today, my role would be just to draw your attention that how we and we together can make difference. Objective is that we also try to see that we are progressing professionally, personally, at family level also. So on this Foundation Day, my submission to each one of you would be that we must dedicate some background noise. I do not know. Some, yeah.
Anil, please unmute all other than speaker.
I request other speaker to mute themselves. Okay, shall I carry on, Mr. Ganeshan?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Okay. So my only submission to all my friends and members would be they are different part of South Zone, South India, and with your love and affection, because all of you have said that you all know me and you always see me on YouTube. But today I'm interacting through virtual mode on this AIFTP Zone. And when I started, I said that we are interacting, we know each other for the common cause, GST. Now, it is my only 10 minutes short duration which I want to deliberate today. I would like to draw your attention why GST is important and what we should do differently in GST to see that we are progressing, we are doing much better as we are supposed to do that. I know GST when got started, government has said multiplicity of taxes will go away. There will not be cascading of taxes. Double taxation will not be there. And we would be having one nation, one market. And rightly so, I am really saying GST has brought all of us together, pan-India, from Kashmir to Kanyakumari. I normally say GST law is a Gita, Bible, and Quran. For simple reason that Kashmir to Kanyakumari, even Kerala, I'm sitting in Delhi, and from Delhi, whatever GST law we are learning, applicable pan-India, Kashmir to Kanyakumari, irrespective of any language. Pre-GST era, there was a challenge that if I'm in Delhi, I can do only Delhi VAT practice. I cannot go to even neighboring state, Rajasthan, Punjab, because VAT was state specific. And there was barrier. State specific barrier. Now today, if anyone who is doing GST practice in Kerala can do practice pan-India, and this GST has brought as a one nation tax. But there is a myth also going on. We all have given a thought that GST is really going to create ease of business. There would be common market, but still what we are finding today, lot of conflicting things are coming out in GST for number of regions. GST Council, which is the formation of center and state, they are trying to make GST law good and simple tax, but still today, as on date, even on basic level, GST is getting complicated. And who is getting it complicated? This is the big question which we need to find out the answer. First and foremost, I do not want you to, put your mind for technical matter of GST today, but still I want each one of you in a chat box, at least you can give a thought to it and tell me whether that is GST applicable, because this is a basic of GST, but still we are finding divergent judgment, divergent ruling, and GST is not getting good and simple tax. Let's take one example, and this is the only one example I want to draw before you and want answer from each one of you in a chat box, please. Now listen here, the first part of it. Let's say I'm in Kerala. I'm registered in Kerala as a GST registered. I got one customer in the US and he wanted a particular goods from me. So instead of supplying from Kerala to US, which is possible, had I supplied from Kerala to US, it would have been export of goods. But what I did instead, I have found out a supplier, a vendor in Korea, South Korea. Now this supplier is supplying directly from South Korea to US. So I got supplier supplying goods from South Korea to US. Now we have to identify, and this is the basic which I'm looking for. And on this basic, I just want to draw your attention, divergent ruling, no clarity and confusion all around. So in this particular transaction, there are two supply. First supply, the supplier who is in South Korea going to raise bill to Bimal Jain registered in Kerala, bill to Kerala. But shipping would be happening from South Korea to US. Now, subsequently, Bimal Jain, who is registered in Kerala, going to raise the invoice to US customer. So there are two transactions. One is a purchase transaction in the books of Bimal Jain, let's say $100. I just want to get your answer in a chat box. Please tell me on $100, and it is only to create your interest, just to see your wavelength, where we are after implementation of GST 4 years. So tell me, the supplier who is in South Korea raising invoice for $100 to Bimal Jain registered in Kerala with a GST leviable, yes or no? That is what the answer I'm looking in a chat box. I'm not looking at a detailed answer. Maybe you can try out with a GST applicable or not applicable. So you can say yes or you can say no. That is all I'm looking for. So it is just to create your interest on the topic. Just one topic of my opening remarks. GST is not leviable. For simple reason, you may be thinking custom duty is leviable including IGST component, but it will not be, because goods has not entered in custom frontier of India. No GST. So debit side of my PL account, $100, I am not supposed to pay any GST. So no custom duty, no IGST, nothing is leviable. So first, you all are okay. Now coming to the second transaction of my billing, Kerala Bimal Jain registered billing to customer in US at $120. The profit margin, $20. So this is revenue coming on credit side of my PL account. So I am going to throw this question to all of you, and let me check whether GST leviable on credit side of my PL account. $120 is a revenue coming from US customer for goods are being supplied from South Korea to US. Tell me whether GST leviable, say yes or no. That is what I'm looking for the answer. Yes or no. So G Bhaskar is saying yes, and I would be requesting each one of you just to create your interest for today. You can check out yourself whether leviable or not leviable. I'm getting some of the answer as no, some of the answer as yes, but maximum answers are not leviable. Like Mr. M. Vijayan has said GST leviable, but let me tell you, no GST, no GST. Can you really levy GST for supply of goods from a non-taxable territory, South Korea, to a non-taxable territory in the US? Can you levy that? You can't levy that. Even IGST Act, which is for interstate supply, it is applicable only for the transaction effected within whole of India. So any transaction which is happening in non-taxable territory, you cannot levy GST. There is simple logic and simple reason. But what happened in GST law? This issue was debated and was the burning issue. Even GST Council in their 28th GST Council meeting has recommended that 3 transactions are no supply. What are those 3 transactions? Merchant trading in third country, high sea sell, and the bond sell when goods are being imported and stored in custom bonded warehouse and sold. Unless bill of entry is being filed for the home consumption, no GST going to be levied. 3 transactions recommended. But what happened? These 3 transactions got inserted in Schedule 3 by Para 7 and Para 8, effective from 1st of February 2019. Now, what department has started doing prior to 1st February 2019, they have started litigating the matter. They have started raising the so-called notice. They have started demanding the GST on these 3 transactions. One of the transactions, supply of goods from Korea to US, they wanted taxpayer to pay GST, whether GST leviable. Even there is 28th GST Council meeting recommendation. And this is subsequently got inserted in Schedule 3, and Schedule 3 is no supply, no GST leviable. And to my mind, GST not leviable because GST law applicable only for the transaction effected in India. Having said that, my last part, and with the beauty of GST. And here I need to test, I'm telling you, I need to test your level of GST knowledge as on date. So I'm throwing a bouncer to you. Let's take this bouncer as a GST perspective, how you're prepared. And I want to see the answer, and that would be my concluding part of this opening session today. Now on $120, in my humble submission, no GST leviable. And most of you have said no GST leviable. But now this is the bouncer to check your knowledge, your content, your excellency. Please try out. Give your answer whatever you consider best. Now, let's say you got common ITC, common input tax credit. Now, pertaining to this $120 on which you have not paid GST, it looks like exempted supplies. Question is, do you require to reverse common ITC pertaining to this turnover of $120 on which no GST was charged? Tell me yes or no. Do you require to reverse? Please tell me in the chat box. Do you require to reverse common ITC pertaining to this $120 on which you have not paid GST? Please tell me in chat box, yes or no. Reversal is required or not required. Okay. So Advocate Nilesh H. Rajat is saying, G. Bhaskar is saying reversal would be required. CNL Agarwal is saying not required. Ajay is saying required. So see the answer which is coming in a chat box. Why such confusion? I said GST is really evolving today. And that is what the interest I want to ignite your mind, and that is the interest I want it to be. And CSK has said on pro rata basis, reversal would be required to the extent of exempted supply. My answer is Sadid Ali saying required. My answer is no reversal required. No reversal required. And where it is being written, as per explanation under section 17, subsection 3 of CGST Act, you need not require to consider this transaction as exempted supply. So all the transaction in Schedule 3 will not be considered as exempted supply, except para 5, sale of land and building. So even though Schedule 3, no supply, no GST charge, but it is not the part of value of exempted supply. And where written under explanation under section 17, subsection 3 of CGST Act. Hence, no need of reversal of common ITC. And why I have taken this example, just to draw where we are heading for. GST was meant to provide simplicity, but still as on date, we all are learning together. And we are trying to learn new and various aspects of GST in a different way. From my side, I always try to put such a law, GST law, complicated law, in a practical way where you get a lot of insight. So today time was very less for me. It was only for the opening remarks. But still, I have taken one example and gone beyond 10 minutes. Sorry for that. But I'm sure with this one example, I have given my glimpses of GST, how interesting it is. And in GST, we can definitely deliver our best. A lot of things are evolving. A lot of things we can do. And just to tell you, this particular transaction which I referred, Appellate Authority of Advanced Ruling in Gujarat, in Sterlite Industries Limited, they have said GST leviable on $120. We all say GST not leviable, but Appellate Advanced Ruling Authority is saying GST leviable. And fortunate enough, Advanced Ruling Authority from Kerala and Maharashtra, both have said there is no GST on $120. On $120 for supply of goods from South Korea to US. No GST. Divergent ruling on simple matter. What we all are looking for. GST should be good and simple tax. But we are evolving. We wanted government to pay attention and create national level advanced ruling authority wherever we are getting conflicting advanced ruling judgment. But nevertheless, time is less. Allow me to say thanks to each one of you for joining today on AIFTP South Zone platform. Today being Foundation Day, my heartiest congratulations to all managing committee members and distinguished members who are the part of AIFTP South Zone, and really compliment and appreciate their efforts, their dedication, their commitment for giving a lot of knowledge sharing to all the members together. I got little opportunity today to interact and look forward for such opportunity, interacting with each one of you. With this, let me allow and say thanks once again. Take care of yourself and God bless all of us together. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ji. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir.
Yes, sir.
Thank you. Your wonderful deliberation. Very good promoting GST. You should explain very well. Explain the GST reasons and other remedies. And now I would like to welcome our Advocate Bhaskar sir for a felicitation for this program. Newly elected Vice Chairman of South Zone. Bhaskar sir, 1 minute. Okay.
Thank you, sir, Anil sir, for the opportunity. Sir, only for Bimal Jain sir's clarification. The foundation day was on 11th of November 1976. 11th of November 1976. It is the 45th year we are celebrating. We have celebrated, and there was a grand gala convention at Pune on the 11th and 12th of November. I had been part of the celebrations, and all the past presidents, zonal secretaries, and all those who have worked for the AIFTP's developments have been felicitated by the National President, Mr. Srinivas Rao. And on my behalf, I also felicitate the AIFTP South Zone to carry on its activity for the fraternity, this thing of the fraternity. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we are going to the topic income from house property. Before going to hand over to floor, our faculty, C. Ajit Shivadasa, I invite our Kiran Ramchandran, Advocate Kiran Ramchandran, for introducing our today's faculty.
Hello.
Kiran, okay.
Am I audible?
Yes, yes.
Good evening to you all. Very careful here. Very heavy rainfall is here. As I know that I am interested to introduce our eminent faculty, CA Ajit Shivadasa sir, but I couldn't move into without conveying my happiness from the heart in sharing this platform with the great scholar, excellent orator and blessed mentor, CA Bimal Jain sir, even though on virtual mode. Very much happy to see you, sir. Very much happy. Now, let me introduce my young, dynamic, and eminent chartered accountant, CA Ajit Shivadasa sir, from Palakkad. He is practicing chartered accountant for 7 years. Now, he is aspiring for CS. He is used to associate in Cochin and Calicut. He is also a member of various national level indirect tax committee and the tutor of very well-known CA club, which we are all familiar with. We all are eagerly waiting to hear you, sir. Over to you. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Kiran. Now we have to hand over the floor to Ajit sir. And today's class will be a lengthy subject. So we intend to complete the subject with the 2 classes. Today and also after 2 weeks after, 1 class will be arranged, same subject. So I invite Ajit sir for handling the session.
Thanks a lot, Anil sir. A very good evening to you all. Thank you for nice introduction, Advocate Kiran Ramchandran sir. The respected dignitaries. The venue being the Foundation Day celebrations for All India Federation of Tax Practitioners arranged by Kerala chapter. So I first of all extend my warm regards to the entire members of this federation for celebrating the Foundation Day, and privileged enough to have a session with Tax Guru CA Bimal Jain sir. So for the reason of stream of stringency, let me on to the topic straight away. The topic of the day being, this is a series wherein actually we are going to have elementary level to higher level of tax learning, income tax learning series. And as today's topic being selected to be income from house property. So income from house property, comparatively a simpler topic comparing to somewhat complex, somewhat vast head of income like profits and gains from business and profession, capital gain, or even income from salary. Only a section which comprises right from section number 22 to 27 of the Act, Income Tax Act 1961. So as rightly mentioned by Advocate V.N. Anil sir, actually we are having 2 sessions in order to elaborate on towards the subject income from house property. So that I do think today's session we shall be having for, I don't know how much time it has been allotted for. Earlier it was for 7. Coordinators, please kindly do convey me up to which time actually we can extend with, please.
Up to 7:30.
So actually I do have one other pre-commitment at 7:15. One advanced course there already committed at 7:15.
Okay, okay, sir.
Okay, so shall we continue up to 7:15? I do think, shall we? Okay, thank you. So that the topic of the day being income from house property. So kindly do allow me to screen share, sir.
You can.
I can't screen. Yes.
Venu?
Yes, sir. Tell me, sir.
Sir, you make me make the CSR, Ajit sir.
Sir, you are the host, sir. You are controlling it, sir. Anil sir is controlling it.
Okay.
You are the main host, sir. You can make him as a co-host, sir.
So you can share, sir.
Yes. Now it's okay.
Thank you. So seminar on income from house property, advanced provisions and applications we are actually entering on to. Sectioning from section 22 to 27 of the Act. So income tax, even though there is a general charging section, section number 4, for every head of income, there would be a separate charging section. So for this section, so this head, second one, income from house property, section 22 would be the charging section. What would be the nature of income? What would be the income which would be held to be taxable under this head? Income from house property would be elaborated in section number 22. So we would be required to classify that income which is held to be taxable in the hands of an assessee as charged under section 4, as per section number 5, scope of total income, and section number 6, as per residential status. If any income is held to be taxable as per section number 5 and the charging section number 4, then we have to check whether that income belongs to income from salary by going through section number 15 of the Act. If it is chargeable to income from house property, by going through section number 22 of the Act, by going through section number 28 in order to find out whether that income is taxable under the head of PGBP. Section 45 of the Act in order to find out whether it is being chargeable under the head capital gain. Under section 56 of the Act, whether it is chargeable under section or under the head income from other sources. So quite an important sort of a decision in order to take which head it is held to be taxable. But because if any income which is held to be taxable in one head, if we are actually misclassifying it to be under some other heads, definitely at the time of assessment, a lot of issues would be there. So it would be quite a due diligence process that has to be inserted while classifying an income towards which head it is going to be held taxable. So here, section number 22 of Income Tax Act specifies what are all the income which are going to held taxable under this head, income from house property. So what is this section? Section number 22 of the Act, if we go through. Section number 22 of the Act says that the annual value of property. So the utmost attention have to be devoted towards this term annual value. It is not the actual value that is going to get taxable, rather the annual value, where it is being defined, or what is annual value. Annual value is nothing but the value determined as per section 23 of the Act. So any value or the value which is being determined under section 23 of the Act would be termed as annual value. And learned speakers, learned listeners, the point is, it is not the actual rent which is not going to get taxable under this head income from house property. Rather, the technical term number 1 that we have to envisage is annual value. Definitely, yes, that term annual value comprises of actual rent, but it need not be an actual rent. Even if it has not been, the property has not been rented out, then again, there is a scope that income, a notional income, an implicit income, it need not be an actual income. So one among the speciality of this head is that it need not be an actual income, rather a notional income can also be held to be taxable under this head, income from house property. So the basic point, the first and foremost point that we have to keep ensure is, it is not the actual rent which is not going to get taxed under this head, income from house property. As per section 22, it would be the annual value. So what is annual value? Section number 23. At the time of discussion, we would be analyzing with. So what the annual value out of which property? Annual value out of building or land appurtenant thereto. So what is the basis for calculating annual value if we go by? It is from the building plus land appurtenant thereto. So building is a must. What is a building and all? We would be analyzing later. So it should be a building plus ancillary land. So mere letting out of land. Suppose I am letting out a vacant land. That rent out of vacant land won't be considered under this head income from house property. It would be taxed under the head income from other sources. So basically, it should be, there should be a building for sure, building plus land appurtenant there should be. Then comes assessee must be the owner of such property. Owner of such property meaning owner need not be a legal owner. Beneficial owner also can be owner under this context. So who is an owner? Definitely a gray area. Definitely we have to pay some more analysis towards that term. That also we would be discussing later. So first of all, it should be annual value, not the actual value. The property must be building plus land appurtenant thereto, and the assessee must be the owner. It can be a legal owner, also can be what? A beneficial owner. So three critical points. So these three critical points are need to be evaluated while selecting an income to be taxed under this head income from house property. Annual value, building and land appurtenant thereto. Third one, ownership over the such property. Then if such property is occupied for the purpose of business or profession, then it won't be taxable under the head income from house property. What does this mean? It means that suppose myself to be a chartered accountant in practice, I am using my own house property to be as my office. So that house property for which I am utilizing it for my official purposes, my professional purposes, that property won't be taxed under this head income from house property. Rather, the income would be taxed implicitly under the head PGBP, profits and gains from business and profession. Why? Because no notional rent, for the reason I am a proprietor of that concern, no notional rent out of that property I can debit to my P&L account. So automatically that would form part of my PGBP income. So if I am using a house property for the purpose of my sort of an office, definitely no, it won't be held to be taxable under this head income from house property. So three critical points from this section 22, income from house property charging section. First one, that should be from annual value. Second one, I must be the owner, assessee must be the owner of that property. Then comes what? Building and land appurtenant there too must be the property underlying. Then it should not have been used for my or the assessee's profit generating business avenue or a professional avenue. That's how section number 22 is. So some among those points mentioned in section 22. What are they? First and foremost term, building. What is a building? The point that we have to envisage with. Building. Building can be music hall, can be a dance hall, can be a lecture hall, and even can be other public auditorium would be termed as building. So it can be a residential building as well as a commercial building. There comes another gray area. Whether all letting out of commercial buildings or all letting out of residential buildings would be coming under the head income from house property. If we ask, the answer is a big no. Income tax department have came up with frequently asked questions wherein it has segregated what are all those items which would be taxed under the head income from house property. What are all the types of rental income would be taxed under the head business and profession. So frequently asked questions specifies this many areas would be taxed under the head income from house property, and this many income would be taxed under the head income from PGBP, profits and gains from business and profession. So a critical view or critical analysis must be done whether it has to be taxed under this head under section 22 or under 28. So here only one point is being mentioned to be as what? It must be a building. Building. It need not be even a building, a civil structure. Even a roof can be sorted to a building as per various court decisions. So that's what it is. Building must be there, first and foremost one. Then comes second one, land appurtenant thereto. Suppose I am letting out a building plus some allied land, incidental land, maybe in form of streets, maybe in form of courtyards, maybe in form of playgrounds, etc. So that rent coming out of that building plus land appurtenant thereto shall be definitely coming under this head income from house property. And the point is, if such income is deriving out of letting out of simple land only, simply letting out of land maybe for any purposes, that letting out of land income won't come under the head income from house property. Rather, it would be coming under the head income from other sources only. So land appurtenant thereto plus building only, that income would be held to be taxable under the head income from house property. Then comes what? Various court judgments regarding building or land appurtenant thereto, that we shall see later. Then comes what? The assessee must be the owner of property. Who is an owner? Owner in two contexts, legal owner as well as beneficial owner. So that the assessee should be either a legal owner of that property or should be a beneficial owner of that property. Otherwise, such income would not be coming under the head income from house property. Second point that has to be picked from section number 22. So what does that mean? That means that suppose I have taken a property on rent. Suppose I am a tenant of a house property, a building, and I am subletting the same to some other person, say to Mr. B, I am subletting. So I am not the owner, I am the lessee, I am the tenant of that building, and I am subletting the same to Mr. C, suppose. Then the income arriving to me in form of rent from Mr. C won't be taxed under this head income from house property, for the basic reason that I am not the actual owner of the property. Myself selecting myself to be the actual owner or a beneficial owner, then only the income charging under this head would be taxed under the head income from house property. So any income which I am not the owner would be taxed under some other heads, not from the head income from house property. So first and foremost point, it must be a building or land appurtenant thereto. Second point, I must be the owner. The assessee must be the owner, either a legal owner or what? A beneficial owner. Then only I would be held to be, or I would be eligible to make such rental income to be my sort of an income tax under this head, income from house property. So this is being exhibited in this example. Income from subletting, not taxable under section 22. Income from subletting is taxable under the head income from house property. Under section 56, it would be going to head taxable. Then the property should not be occupied by the owner for his own business or profession. I was telling that point. If I am using a house property for my sort of professional purposes or for my sort of business purposes, then such property won't be coming under this head. The property definition, building and land appurtenant to the thereto definition under this section, section number 22. Then comes, if I am having any foreign building and land appurtenant, what is the position? We know income tax on foreign income, income not received in India, income not accrued in India, income not arised in India, won't be taxed in the hands of, a non-resident or a not ordinarily resident. So sure, if I am having a house property outside country, outside India, and such income is not received here for the obvious reason, the income accruing outside India, income arising outside India, I won't be taxed unless otherwise I am a ordinarily resident. So if I am an ordinarily resident, then definitely yes, that income from that house property also, the person would be liable to pay taxes in India. Suppose I am having two properties here in India, self-occupied, and I am having one more property, say in Sri Lanka, which is also my sort of an outhouse. If I am visiting Sri Lanka, I would be there, my sort of a guest house, my business friends or myself may be visiting Sri Lanka, I would be staying there. So there, even though I am not letting it for my income purposes, for the basic reason that two self-occupied houses I am here in India, I am having here in India, and one property there in Sri Lanka, for the reason I am a resident of India, then the point comes that the property for the purpose of computing income tax, income from house property, I am having three self-occupied property, automatically one property would become a deemed let out property. On such property, I would be required to pay what? Taxes. So that's what is a property which is there in foreign country. So even if I am a resident, even though I am not letting it off for the computation purposes, definitely yes, it would be counted par with any property which is located in India. and thereby definitely for sure any property which is located in India would be having such self-occupied sort of or a deemed let out sort of a status, every computational purposes for those properties in India would be mutatis mutandis applicable to those property which are situated outside the country also. So before filing the returns, definitely yes, we as tax practitioners, we as tax consultants, we as chartered accountants, whoever it is, definitely we have to ensure that whether the assessee is having any foreign property, that also we would be required to show it under their income from house property purposes. For the reason, any property situated outside India would also be included under the term building and land appurtenant thereto. Then comes, suppose we are having any dispute over the ownership of the property. Say there are some court cases in between, say brothers and sisters or some co-owners. Then how it would be done with? There, the department comes up with protective assessment perspective, protective assessment on disputed ownership. So on disputed ownership, there would be protective assessment. Protective assessment means the department would be assessing tax on the income on those disputed ownership property on all the co-owners' hand. And when the final verdict comes, then on that basis, that income on the tax on such income would be kept and the remaining would be refunded back to the non-owners of that property. That's how the disputed ownership on property would be dealt with the department in practical purposes. Protective assessment would be there on the disputed ownership on such building or land appurtenant thereto having what disputes in court of law, before court of law. Then quite an important or a relevant topic that for a builder, for a real estate business person, they are having house properties as stock in trade, Suppose I'm a builder, I'm building, say, flats, or I am building separate or individual residential accommodations. Whether that properties would come under the head building and land appurtenant thereto, if we ask, the Act itself gives exemption on those buildings and land appurtenant thereto, which are held to be as stock in trade. Suppose I'm a builder, I have built 10 residential villas. That residential villas would be shown under my balance sheet to be as stock in hand, my property for building in advance or building under construction. The basic point that we require to understand is building under construction. Building under construction, again do I repeat, building under construction is not at all treated as house property, so that any building under construction won't be taxed under this head income from house property. So apart from those buildings under construction, suppose I have fully constructed building. When that building would be termed to be as fully constructed building, only after the competent authority gives what? Building permit. Only if they gives me the grant of completion certificate, then only that building would be coming from the pouch of building under construction. So here, if my building have got the competent authority certification, building completion certificate, then if it is being shown under my closing stock under current asset category, it won't be treated as income from house property. So again, do I repeat? If I am a builder, it is not in the category of building under construction. So building under construction already out of income from house property definition, for the reason it won't be treated to be as a building at all. Then comes what? Building for which I have got what? The building for which I have got the permission. For such building, for the reason I have got the permission, it won't be building under construction anymore. It won't be building under construction anymore. It is my finished commodity. It is my closing stock in hand. That closing stock in hand won't be treated as income from house property, provided 24 months have expired from the date on which my building got the permission. So up to 24 months, up to 24 months, such building, I am not required to classify it to be as part of income from house property. After that 24 months, automatically such property would be classified as income from house property. And even if I am not letting it, even though I am not getting any active income out of such property, for the reason, if I am having more than 2 self-occupied property, latest amended, if I am having building more than 2 with me, then obvious, if it is not used for my business or professional purposes, then it would come under deemed let out property. In section number 22, as I rightly mentioned earlier, it is not the actual rent which is going to get taxed in your hands. Rather, it is a notional value. It's a notional value. It is a notional value, so that the municipal value, the fair rental value, the standard rent, etc. would come to play. So even if there is no actual rent from that property, after 24 months from the date on which the building gets what certificate completion, then it would be held to be income from house property, and the notional value on such house property would be held to be taxable. So is there any escape? Is there any escape? Is there any escape for the builders, if we ask? Why? Because this is a harsh provision. This is a harsh provision. Why? Because in these days of pandemic situation, in these days wherein real estate is going down, there would be lot of flats, there would be lot of residential villas, unoccupied, unsold. Apart from the laws on such unsold residential apartments, unsold residential villas or flats or apartments, if the builders are asked to pay tax on such properties also, whether it would be a burden? Definitely, yes, it would be a burden. So how to plan the same? We can see such builders won't be completing the building 100%. They won't be completing the building 100%. Only 99% of work may have been happened, and only at the time wherein the actual buyer, a proposed buyer, or who is going to actually buy the property comes and the deal completes, then only the builder would be finishing off the entire work. Then only they would be going for what? Building permission. Only after getting that building permission, they would be selling it to the buyer of the property, his client or its client, so that they can escape from this provision wherein this house stock in trade, this house property, this building, he having more than 24 months won't be getting taxed under it. So this point definitely we have to advise to our construction clients, to the builders clients. Otherwise, after 24 months, after building completion certificate getting to their hands, it would be termed to be under the head income from house property. 24 months are there. So kindly advise them so that 100% completion is not over, or we are not approaching the competent authority to get forward building construction completion certificate. That's how it is. So that building under construction is not treated as a house property, a building or land appurtenant thereto. So it escapes from section 22 of the Act. So that's what is stock in trade context. Now comes another concept. Composite rent concept. Composite rent. So what is composite rent? Composite rent meaning, suppose I have been renting out any property, and that rent comprises of the furniture inside that building, machinery, suppose it is for business purposes, or I am collecting for common amenities such as lift facilities, garden, swimming pool, gym, etc. Apart from any income from the building or land appurtenant thereto, the remaining amount won't be coming under the purview of section number 22. So if any income which is not from building or land appurtenant thereto, then such income won't be taxed under the head income from house property. So such composite rent we have to bifurcate in such a way that only income on the building would be taxed under the head income from house property. Otherwise, it would be taxed in various other heads. Suppose if building, we can segregate. Say I am giving 10,000 rupees rent to my landlord, and that 10,000 rupees, 8,000 for that building and 2,000 for common facilities. So how that 10,000 would be held to be taxable in hands of my landlord? If I ask that 8,000, which is separable, there it is been shown that 8,000 towards building rent, 2,000 towards common facilities, common amenities. Then 2,000 would be taxed in other heads, and 8,000 only would be taxed in the hands of that my landlord under the head income from house property. So here, if it is not separable, then how to deal with? If it is not separable, definitely yes, it would be held to be taxable under income from other sources. It would be taxable under the head income from other sources. If there are some business connections also, if there are any income wherein I would be required to make it taxed under the head PGBP, then also the same thing there. If it comes under the head PGBP, if it is composite, if I can segregate it, then the respective income would be taxed under the head PGBP, and the remaining portion would be taxed under the head income from other sources. So as if there is any composite rent forming part in my receipt, only the rent apportioned on building and land appurtenant thereto, I would be required to make it taxable under the head income from house property. Rest income, definitely I would be required to dedicate it towards some other heads of income. So that's what is the concept of composite rent. Likewise, section 22 is there. So section number 22 we were trying to familiarize today. Section number 22 having 3 critical points to be looked for. First one, annual value is the value which is going to be held taxable, and this annual value would be discussed under the section 23 of the Act. Next section. Then there must be building or what land appurtenant thereto, then only such income would be held to be taxable under the section 22. Then comes, there must be the ownership. A tenant cannot sublet, and subletting income won't be taxed under the head income from house property. Then we should not use it for the assessee's business or professional purposes. Then only it would be coming under the head income from house property. So this many points were being there under section 22. The remaining sections, section number 23 determines how to compute that annual value, gross annual value. 4 concepts are there: fair rental value, municipal value, standard rent value, as well as actual rent collected. Then section number 24 speaks about various deductions under the head income from house property. 24A standard deduction and 24B interest on loan including pre-construction interest. Then section number 25 regarding disallowance of various expenses due to non-deduction of TDSs, etc. Then comes section number 26. Then comes section number 27, 27A and all. So these many sections are there under this head income from house property. For the reason the time allowed is over, so let us have the remaining sections right from 23 to 27 plus some advanced concepts in 22. I do expect it to be completed in next sessions. So within which actually I do have got another commitment right at 7:15. I am handling one advanced course from Institute of Cost and Management Accountants of India. So I beg your pardon for not being for the next 15 minutes already allotted to me. Why? Because I am having a pre-commitment. Thank you for inviting me. Privileged to have chaired along with Tax Guru CA Bimal Jain sir. Once again, I extend the warm regards to the entire federation, all master brains behind this association. Thanks a lot for inviting me. Thank you. Thank you. Over to you, sirs.
Okay, sir. Now the time for question answer session. The second part will be completed on the next class. Okay. If anybody wants to ask question, please ask questions. So please close the screen. Okay, you may ask questions, sir.
Anil, whether the Ajit sir have time, has time? to
Please, sir,
answer?
actually, I had asked 4 minutes from them. They would be waiting, sir. No issues.
Okay.
Sir, Kiran here.
Yes,
I
sir,
had a
please.
doubt. What is the conceptual difference between section 24, deduction of interest, and section 80E?
Sir,
In that section
Yes,
also.
sir. Yes, sir. I'm getting you, sir. 24B actually you would be.
Am I one second, sir? Can I enjoy both of them?
Definitely we can, sir. But only the differential amount. Suppose I am paying 2.5 lakh to be interest. 2 lakh I can deduct from the section 24B, and the remaining amount eligible 80E or 80EE or whatever section it is. If we are eligible, if the loan is available during the period, definitely we can deduct under those sections, sir. But only the remaining amount over and above the unexpired amount. Double deduction is not possible, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Yes, sir.
Sir, what will happen due to pandemic if suppose we could not find the tenant and property remains vacant for 6 months and it is rented out only for 6 months out of 12 months. So we have to add for 12 months or what is the position, sir?
Yes, sir. Actually, loss due to vacancy would be there, sir. If the tenant is not there, loss due to vacancy provisions actually we can do. Those loss due to vacancy provisions, everything we would be discussing while going through section number 23, sir. How to compute annual value and all, definitely we would be discussing. So loss due to vacancy, actually we can include while comparing it with expected rent, after which definitely we can deduct. So loss due to vacancy won't be an issue.
Right, sir. Right. Thank
then
you.
again, if the if you had tenant with them and they haven't paid you the amount, sir, then if it comes under unrealized rent, that also definitely we shall have a deduction, sir. So those things definitely we would be dealing at the time of going through section number 23, annual value.
Right, sir.
And we say that.
Okay.
Anything more, sir?
Anyone wants to ask question? Please ask. In the chat box there.
Hello.
Hello. Yeah.
Hello.
Sir, it's a wonderful section, sir. I want to tell you that only, sir. It's a wonderful section, sir.
Thank you, madam.
Okay.
Madam, where from you?
Sir?
Tilagavati, madam.
Yes, sir.
Pondicherry, Tilagavati, madam.
Tilagavati, madam. Okay.
Okay. Any more questions? Please ask. Same topic will be continue on the next class.
Sir, one more question is there. If some property we are getting rent to very less amount compared to pre-COVID, so department may ask that how the rent is decreased, or we can pay the tax only on actual rent receipt, or they may value it at a higher rental. What is the position, sir? Because in post-COVID situations, either property is vacant or it is getting half of the rent what we used to get in pre-COVID. So is there any deduction available there in income tax, sir? What is the position, sir?
Yes, sir. But, right, as you rightly mentioned, sir, actually that expected rent would be compared with the actual rent, sir. So due to this pandemic situation, explicitly speaking, there are no provisions in such a way that for the reason there is no unrealized rent, there is no loss due to vacancy. So if the actual rent is lower than that of so-called expected rent, right now,
yes,
the expected rent would be the notional rent on which actually we would be required to pay the tax. No explicit provisions are there, sir. Actually,
yes,
in pre-budget memorandum, also various forums, actually we were reminding the government regarding these provisions. So let us expect the same, maybe for this Finance Act 2022. So unless actually there is no provision in order to escape from the tax liability.
Okay, okay. But actually, sir, when the tenant is coming, new tenant, after COVID, they are paying us only half of the rent of the pre-COVID position. So we have to pay actual tax on actual rent basis, na, sir? Or suppose we are getting half of the rent compared
Yes,
to.
sir. We may be definitely we may be required, sir.
Okay. Thank you very much, sir.
Okay. Okay.
Sir, whether the fireman rent value will different for that period, sir?
So I didn't get you, sir.
Sir, the fire rent value of fire rent will be reduced in the for the particular period during the COVID. Anything? Is there any
Yes, sir.
notification, sir?
Not till, sir. Why? Because actually, as you rightly mentioned, sir.
Okay. Okay. Okay.
One second, madam. 1 second, madam. I shall be okay. Sorry, sir. So, sir, actually, fair rental value definitely is, but there is municipal value concept, no, sir. So, while calculating that higher of municipal value than the fair rental value, even if the market value of rent goes down, for the reason municipal value would be higher, then that municipal value only would be compared with what? So-called standard control act rent, standard rent. So that benefit, even if the fair value goes down, that need not be getting passed on to the actual assessee. That is the issue.
Okay. Okay. Thank you, sir.
Okay.
Okay, Anil, shall we conclude?
Any more question, please? If there is no question, we will go to wind up. Okay. So we will continue this same topic in the next class. Probably it will be on 13th Saturday. We will announce later. The time and date will be announced later. Now I would like to invite our Palakkad chapter coordinator, Sri TPR Vijayan, for the vote of thanks.
A warm welcome to all of the members who participate in today's Foundation Day special virtual meet. I first of all express my sincere gratitude to Sri Tax Guru, the doyen of the Indian GST bar tax industry, Sri Bimal Jain sir, for participating in today's mission and grace the occasion. Thank you, Bimal Jain sir. And I express my sincere thanks to CA Ajit ji for deliberating today's issue, income from house property, part 1 of the ingoing series. Thank you, Mr. Ajit ji. And I express my sincere thanks to Sri Ganeshan sir, chairman of the AFTP South Zone, and Fasaluddin sir, secretary of the AFTP South Zone, and Anil VN, state coordinator and today's moderator, for participating and guiding the today's virtual meet. I express my sincere gratitude and thanks to Mr. Advocate Jafar Ali and Mr. Advocate Kiran Jamachandran for joining today's virtual meet. And also, I express my sincere gratitude to Advocate Hariharan sir for participating today's virtual meet. Also, I express my sincere gratitude to Sri Tanjavur Revichandran sir and Sri Bhaskar Advocate from Chennai for participating and grace today's virtual meet. And also, I express my sincere gratitude to Sri Venu R. Prabhu and Sri Bibin for our media supporters rather than selling and academy partners. And also, I express my sincere gratitude to all of the leaders, members, and the dignitaries who participate in today's AFTP Foundation Day special virtual meet. And thank you one and all. Thank you.
Thank you, Jeta.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Once again, thanks to all.
Thank you.
Attending this today's program. Due to some technical reason, many of them are not able to join this program. So sorry for that disturbance. So we will clear that problem. Solve it. Next time we will solve that problems. Okay. Happy.
Murthy from Tirupur is there. Okay. Congratulations. And once again, congratulations all award winners. Your award.
Thank you, Ganeshan sir.
Amounts will be delivered later. Okay.
Thank you, Ravichandran, and everyone.
Virabichandri, a warm good evening and special thanks for attending today's virtual meet.
Yes. Okay.
Okay, sir.
We will wind up.
Yes.
Thank you to all, sir. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you, sir.